Well, hello everybody. This is Dr. Troy Dukowitz of the Commit and Go podcast, where we encourage you to make big commitments, take big action, and create big-ass results in your life and business. Today's topic is this: are you a wandering generality? So this is, I believe it's a concept, or it was something that was brought forward by Stephen Covey in talking about being a wandering generality or a meaningful specific. And just the other day, I was having a conversation with a client, and we were talking about not having goals or targets in specific areas. And namely, in this conversation, it was about her relationship. In that when she looked at her relationship with her and her husband, it was a matter like they had a good relationship, but they didn't really have any desired outcome for the relationship. They didn't have any goals for it. They didn't have any targets for it. And so what started happening is they started to become this wandering generality of a relationship. And ultimately, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to have a wandering generality relationship? Well, if there's no meaningful specifics to the relationship, the target, the goals that you have, then eventually it's very easy to start taking each other for granted. It's very easy to start going through the motions. It's very easy to become roommates. Now, I know some people listen to say, no, you took vows. And because you took those vows, you have to make sure that you love, honor, and appreciate each other every day, and make sure you do it every day for the rest of your life. Well, I get that. What I also know is that for most of us who are actually human, we go through life and we have things that happen. We have to take our kids to school. We have to make sure that we get to work. We have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. We have to make sure that we're nurturing our families. We have to make sure there's a lot of stuff that we have to do. And what we know is that when we have meaningful specifics, when we have specific targets that we're shooting at, specific goals that we're shooting at, it makes it easier on a day in and day out basis to set up your schedule in a manner that's going to allow you to actually accomplish those goals. And when we are wandering generalities, when we don't have anything specific that we're shooting for, it's very easy to become distracted. It's very easy to think that things that you are working on are meaningful, that they are going to have an impact in your life. Until eventually you find out that you get 3, 4, 5 months down the road, maybe you haven't had a date with your spouse for 5 months. Maybe you get 3, 4, 5 months down the road and you realize you haven't worked out for 5 months. Maybe you realize you haven't been to church for 5 months. Maybe you realize in your practice, your business, that you haven't had team meetings, or you haven't had financial meetings, or you haven't had marketing meetings because you weren't really shooting for anything. Now, I know this kind of goes without saying, and you listen to it and you go, well, I know where you're going with this. It means that I have to have a specific target. Yeah, it does. And what I also know about that is that if you're not checking yourself, if you're not checking your targets, if you don't have benchmarks, if you're not evaluating, if you're on track or off track, it's easy for a meaningful, specific target to become a wandering generality. See, the beauty of goals is it gives us something to constantly be shooting for in life. It keeps us from going down a path of stagnating and deteriorating in relationships and in our health. It gives us an opportunity to constantly strive for never-ending improvement, as Tony Robbins speaks of. It gives us that opportunity for constant growth, inspiration, productivity, and connection. But we've got to have something that we know that we want and that we're shooting for. So in this conversation with her, it was very simple. He said, well, what do you want in your relationship? If you were to look 6 months from now and you want to sit down and you want to tell me what happened in your relationship 6 months from now, what do you want to tell me? What is the absolute specific targets that you have in your relationship? What are the goals that you have? You look at your own health. What's the goal that you have in your health? What's the goal that you have in your spirituality? What's the goal that you have in your business? And do you really want these things that you're telling me about? And be specific. Don't minimize yourself. I see people do this all the time. I want to work out a minimum of 2 to 3 times a week. A minimum. That's minimizing the goal. And it's not specific. It's a generalized, minimizing goal. It's not specific. So the chances of me hitting something that says I want to work out 3 to 4 times a week or 3 to 5 times a week become very minimal, become very limiting, because my mind is going to gravitate towards the 3 times a week, not the 5. But yet when I raise the bar and raise the standards and become more specific about what I want, now I've got work to do. And it all changes. My life changes because the question I have to ask is, who do I have to become? What kind of a badass do I have to become to be working out 7 days a week? What kind of a badass do I have to become to be just like a magnificent lover and friend to my spouse? What kind of badass do I have to become to make sure that I'm having date days with my boys or my girls on a weekly basis? What kind of badass do I have to become to go into the office and make sure that I'm having team meetings every single day, and make sure that we're doing marketing meetings once every 2 weeks, and make sure that we're doing financial meetings once every 3 weeks, whatever it is? When you ask the question, who do you have to become? I'm asking you, who's the badass version of you that you have to become to hit these targets? But if you don't have specific targets, then you'll continue to show up in a state of mediocrity. You'll continue to show up in this place of, hey, life is good enough. Hey, things are great, man. They're going awesome. Until finally one day, they're not. Do the work now, or you're going to pay for it later. So my hopes in sharing this with you today is that you take a simple assessment. Just simply assess what it is that you want in your health, in your spirituality, in your relationships, and in your business. Just take a look at those 4 areas. And if you already have goals or targets, great. Write them down and just see what you write. Is what you're writing something that's a meaningful specific, or is what you're writing a wandering generality? And if it's a wandering generality, take the steps necessary to make it super specific. Right now, make it specific. And if it's already a meaningful specific, then identify if you're on or off track with it and what is it going to take for you to get on track. This is kind of a gut check podcast, if you will. It's a refocusing podcast, if you will, to help you to simply identify where you're at and are you working towards something that's specific and meaningful, or something that's a wandering generality. I don't want to see your life end up as a wandering generality. I don't want to see your relationships end up that way. I don't want to see mine end up that way. What I do want to see is I want to see us hitting our goals. I want to see us hitting our targets. I want to see us all living a have-it-all life. And the only way we're going to do that is if we know what that life is. So take the time right now, go through the exercise, identify what are your 4 areas. Body, being, balance, and business. Look at those 4 areas and identify what are your goals that you have in those areas. Are they specific or are they general? And if they're general, make them specific. And if they're specific, make sure you're on track. If you're off track, course correct. It's that simple. And start taking actions today that move you towards your meaningful, specific goals and targets. And you're going to move a step closer to that have-it-all life you've always dreamed of. That's all I've got for you here today, folks. Hey, as always, make sure you're heading over to the commitandgo.com page. Check out basically what I offer every day, week, and month throughout the course of the year. We have a 30-day challenge coming up. It's my Empowered Morning Challenge. It's coming up. Shoot me an email, drtroy@commitandgo.com, to get information about it and get registered for this program. It is going to kick ass and take names. That's all I've got for you here today. I am Dr. Troy Dukowitz. This has been the Commit and Go podcast. We encourage you to make big commitments, take big action, and create big ass results in your life and business. We'll hear you next time.